All right, we're about to get started. I know. I need somebody. Come on in. All right, we're about to get started. Hello. Hello. Loud whistle. Loud whistle. There's more seats up here. Aaron, bring your Northwest folks up front, please. Any Colliers people. Andrew, if you're talking in the back. Andrew Wickern. Keith. Brad, y'all come up here. Sorry, I got to call people out to get everybody started. Come on up. Yeah, front row. Front row. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for coming out here. This is a real exciting event for us. We've got a great program for you. I want to start by thanking several people. First and foremost, our sponsor, CCIM, Randall Moore and team. They do a great job. And we're fortunate that they helped put this on. Advocates of education in the commercial real estate world. I want to say thank you to First Security, John and all of his team, JC. They've graciously agreed to be our host for this beautiful new campus that John's going to talk about in just a minute. Several on the Colliers team. Amy Mines puts this on every year. She leads it. Great job. I don't know where you are, but did a great job. Thank you. Katie Rains. She runs our creative and research for Colliers, and Thomas Beecham put together these. There's Thomas in the back. They put together these reports, and they crunch this data with and help support our team and hopefully our community each quarter to make better decisions in real estate and really put data on display like we're going to talk about today. I want to say thanks to Mayor Scott for coming today. Really appreciate you being here. We are so fortunate to have a pro-business mayor for Central Arkansas and is so friendly to the commercial real estate community. So we are just grateful for you here. Arkansas Business is here, and they actually gave us first look at the real estate report. It's hot. If you touch it, it's hot off the press. So Mitch and your team, thank you so much for what you do and support. Like I mentioned, about 5, 6, 7 years ago, maybe, there was a void in commercial real estate data. And we have a lot of great brokers and developers and folks in the commercial real estate industry here. But we needed a way to track vacancy, track month over month, year over year, quarter over quarter rates for office, industrial, so we can make better decisions to help our clients and to really shape this community. So that's what this is about. It's not a event to showcase any one firm or one person. This is just about making our community better, and we wanted to help take the lead in that, and we're so grateful to all the firms. I see them all here, and I'm just so grateful to work with you. Y'all participate on panels and help make deals for our clients and for everybody to make this a better place and a more fun place to work. Honestly, and live. And so that's what this is about. I think that's it for my intro. So we're going to have a great panel. John is going to come up. Keep going in and out a little bit, sorry. John is going to come up and welcome everybody, and just talk a little bit about First Security Bank and about this campus. Then we'll do a panel. We'll do some Q&A, and then I'll dismiss everybody. So again, thankful for everybody for being here, and I'll turn it over to John, who's the Central Arkansas President and CEO of First Security Bank.
Thanks, Isaac. All right. I'll tell you a little bit about the bank, and then we'll talk a little bit about our project here and why we're so excited about it and grateful for the opportunity. You know, it was a 10-year overnight wonderful, you're looking for 10 years and all of a sudden something overnight just happens, and here we are. So that's what it seemed to happen here and what got us to this place. We're a community bank, started in Searcy 1932. We are still holding true to trying to be just a community bank as we started, and a community bank is only as good as its local community and all the jobs and all the things that happen. And you're going to, I think Jack here in a little bit is going to be talking about things in Central Arkansas and all the opportunities that are going on. But one of our sister companies, Cruz & Associates, who's downtown, also will be located here on this campus with us. Those guys were started in 1979, became part of our company in 2000. They're an integral part of what we do at our company that makes us a little unique and different, especially in the state of Arkansas and the way we serve communities that we're in. You can go on to the next slide. We're still investing in Arkansas, not just here on this campus. The top picture there is our new technology center in downtown Searcy, something we're really proud of. When we built that building in downtown, it's something that's a little unique to a small community like Searcy, but it was a statement towards our future and ultimately our plan to grow into it as we continue to evolve and develop as a business. But still, downtown Springdale just opened a new location there, excited about the redevelopment happening. Fort Smith grew another location in 2024. And then at the bottom, you can see the park that we're sitting in now. So this is an aerial. You see Building 1, Building 2 with the renovation, and Building 3. One of the things that's really exciting about this, and hopefully, as you guys know, that's all been through COVID, the idea of getting people back to work. And what a place like this can be when we're all back here and it's more of a vibrant, lively atmosphere on a daily basis. You've got Windstream in Building 1 and the floor above us here where we sit. Building 3, where we are today, on the top 2 floors is West Rock Coffee. Also inside Building 1 with Windstream is Arcane. That's a plastics manufacturing business or corporate offices there. And then in the back is still FIS's 7-story data center office building. And we're hopeful those guys continue to come back to work so that this campus can have the type of jobs and daily activity that it once did. You can go to the next one. One of the things that makes us really unique is being a small town community bank from Searcy, we still kind of like a small town community bank lobby. And so we've got an addition that we're adding on to Building 2. It's under construction now. The whole focus is what's it feel like to a customer walking in the front door and what's it feel like to work there. So we're hoping to create the same atmosphere you would if you walked in our main bank in downtown Searcy, where people are waving across the lobby going, oh, hey, good to see you. And, you get that kind of interaction in a small community. We're hoping to recreate that here because it's something that we're accustomed to. It's in all of our markets and our design with our buildings. So we're excited about this. Hopefully this fall we'll be here. So Cruz & Associates will also be moving here. So all in all, there'll be about 200 of our fellow associates that'll be located in Building 2 and in the project. As you can imagine, as well as the other bankers in the room, I know there's several friends in the banking industry in the room. We finance commercial real estate of all types. They do as well. It takes all of us. It's a big market. It's a lot of money. They're big assets. Not one bank can do it by itself, right? So it takes all of us in the banking industry to participate in the commercial real estate business and lending. And so, I think it's one of those deals where we're all cheering for the market to improve. We're all cheering for the market to see success. And we like to see you guys create opportunity, make some money, and reinvest it, right? So it takes all of us. It's a big part of what we do as well as everybody else. You can go to the next one. Ultimately, community banking, quite simply, our small town kind of nature, it's relationships. It's people it's the people in the room. But it's the local market and the local economy, and we're still focused on that with every market we're in, and excited to be here, excited to be able to offer this opportunity to Colliers and the team and to everyone else in the business. So thanks for being here. Now on to Mr. Jack Thomas. So what is the engine that drives it all? It's called jobs, right?
That's right.
So Jack is vice president with the Chamber of Commerce. If you've not seen an announcement lately, don't worry. It'll probably be one tonight in your inbox of some other job announcement. I know Mayor Scott's been involved in a whole lot of these jobs announcements that we've seen lately, but it's been a record-setting pace that we've been on over the last several years. Jack's been in the middle of all of it, and with those types of jobs, it's usually a team effort. It's public, private, it's state, it's local, it's everybody. So Jack's going to run the panel and take it from here.
Yeah, thanks so much. And great to be amongst friends this afternoon. It's good to look out and see so many familiar faces, so many members of ours, investors of ours that give us the chance to work together and grow this market. So we've got an all-star panel lined up. Please be sure to get your questions ready. We'll have plenty of time for audience Q&A as well. But I'll start just by introducing our panel, and then we'll dive into the questions, and we'll move to my left here. So first is Bill Pendergrast, Vice President of Brokerage at Colliers, where he specializes in brokerage sales and leasing transactions in office, retail, industrial, land, and multifamily developments. To his left is my friend Brian Day, our excellent leader at the Port of Little Rock, one of the hottest spots in the entire country in terms of the industrial markets. Brian's been involved in state and local government for over 35 years and is a tremendous, tremendous partner to the chamber, to this city, to the region, and all of the real estate community. To his left is Mr. CBRE himself, William Callahan. With over 25 years' experience, Callahan has completed assignments in excess of 30 million square feet in just about every major city in North America. To his left is Nathan Hutchins, Director of Sales and Leasing, Senior Advisor, and Principal Broker for SVN ArcBest Realty. Nathan is the 2025 President of CCIM and is a SVN Certified Retail Specialist and has recently been inducted into the SVN Partners Circle. And last but not least is my friend Foster Pollock, one of Collier's newest hires, who is doing some really cool things on the development front that I think you guys will have the chance to hear about today. So first question for our panel, fair game here. Anybody can take a stab at this. As we get into our discussion and we look back on the market's performance from 2024, were your expectations realized? What were some of the things that happened that you didn't expect? And what was the general activity in the market in 2024?
Well, I'll be happy to go first. Thanks for everybody for coming out, and a really good question. So as far as office goes, it far exceeded expectations from most of the brokerage community that I was talking to in preparation for this meeting. Historically, back in 2020, office vacancies were down up to 20% vacant, and right now we're sitting at right at 11%. So that shows there's a very healthy tension between what's occupied and what's available out there. We've seen significant transactions. Downtown is a viable option, and doom and gloom is no longer the clause that people think of when they think of office. It's people are coming back to work. Employers are working through that, and we'll dig deep into a couple of transactions a little bit later. But I think all in all, office has been exceeding expectations for the office market.
What you guys see in 2024?
In regards to retail, you see the vacancy, and I'll highlight on that. The vacancy rate drop from pandemic to today, it dropped significantly. So the retail had a great 2024, and I see that into 2025.
Yeah, industrially speaking, too, I think we can all say that we have a supply crisis in the industrial space for sure. I think we've seen that begin to possibly go away over the last 12 months, but all in all, that market's performed well. I think it's a darling asset class. It has continued to keep rents are good and strong. Your B and C space hovers in around that $4 and $5 a foot range. I think our A space, which is clearly limited and we'll talk about later, in and around that 6 to 7 number, depending upon credit and term. But I think we would all say that the industrial market has certainly met and will continue, I think, to be a pretty positive asset class going forward, for sure.
So one thing that I think we can't ignore is uncertainty that exists in the market. I spent the last couple of days in D.C., and if uncertainty was mentioned once, it was mentioned a million times. But I think there's still some uncertainty in the market as it pertains to interest rates. There are deals that may have looked good 2 or 3 years ago that are now up several hundred basis points that make it a little bit harder to pencil, especially on the development side. But given that uncertainty, what do you guys see as we look forward for the future of the Little Rock market?
Well, I'd take a step back a little bit on 2024. Certainly from a macro perspective, development was difficult. construction costs remain around 30% higher than they were 4 years ago. Mark reaffirmed that with me, so that's good. And interest rates have more than doubled in those 4 years. So it creates a very difficult environment in 2024 and an election year as well. So, but Little Rock continued to outpace the national average. I mean, we delivered, I won't get into the industrials and the port, but you know, from the retail side of things, restaurants, we see a really strong resurgence in Little Rock. A great testament to that is Breckenridge Village and the creativity that it took and what it's now provided our community in the common spaces, amenity areas to attract those retailers. Those are huge wins. Southern Tail Brewery down there, Soma continues to be revitalized. Out west, Blue Smoke, individual standalone restaurants, really exciting. And then I was talking to Daniel Vogel on the multifamily side of things. For Central Arkansas, we delivered 6 complexes in 2024, which attributes to about 1,300 units for the market, which is the largest annual influx of multifamily in about 4 years for the market. So with only a couple still ongoing, and actually further, only or at the last 2 years, not a single multifamily project has broken ground in Central Arkansas. So I think that will lend time to absorb those units. We remain around 93% occupancy rate here in Central Arkansas. So it's a very healthy market, and with the port and the growth in industrials, I think we'll see continue to outpace the national average.
So I also want to thank all of you for coming out today. From a port perspective, you know, we're talking about interest rates and things. I want to mention just anecdotally what we're seeing or what I believe at the port. We are continuing to respond to a larger than average number of RFIs. People are interested in manufacturing spaces, distribution spaces. And what I've come to believe personally over the last 4 or 5 years is that communities like Little Rock, it's kind of our turn. It's harder to build in Memphis or Dallas or Kansas City. And so it's middle America. We've got affordable land. We have a business-friendly environment. We have a city and a county and a state that are supporting job growth. We've got good, at least at the port and on the interstate, we've got good logistics. We know corporate America is moving away from the coast in some of these larger communities. So I think communities like Little Rock, Tulsa, Jackson, Tennessee, that are on these major interstate corridors, I think that we're going to see a lot of growth in the next 3 to 5 years. At least there's going to be a lot of interest. And if we can deliver the product and the other things that go along with that, I think we're going to see, at least in manufacturing and distribution, continued growth.
Certainly a lot of activity at the port. We expect to be able to announce even more activity out there, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, next couple of months. So stay tuned for that. Bill, let's come back. Let's talk a little bit about the office sector and drill in there. What were some of the major office transactions in 2024? What drove those? What are some of the hot spots? You mentioned downtown. What's the outlook for the Central Business District? Let's start there.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. So I think it's interesting. Hello? Yeah. So going back to your interest rate question, you're not seeing a lot of new speculative development right now because interest rates coupled with construction costs are significant. And so that's going to be prohibitive of people going to go out and speculate by building empty space, waiting on somebody to come in. But by contrast, user activity has still been very healthy. And we saw a significant amount of transactions where users were buying existing office product, and that increased the values of the sales transactions. We saw office transactions for sales going from 125 to 200 a square foot on average for professional office building, and that is a big milestone for our market. But in the leasing sector, I was going to drill down on one significant lease that is kind of a staple that we can talk about is the Lyon College dental lease in the One Ally Drive Building 5. That's backfilling 121,000 square feet of space in the River Market District. That is a huge lease in any market, but specifically for Little Rock. And they're building out the space to occupy this year up to 7 floors of that building to create the state's only dental school, which is already, I got a report today that they're filling up all their dental slots for students coming in and faculty right now. So it's going to be a huge catalyst for jobs for Arkansas and specifically for Little Rock. but that was a massive lease. And then there were several downtown transactions that were very, very nice. There was a Veterans Affairs lease in the 200 West Capitol building. There was a UAMS lease in the UT Tower in Midtown, and several others that I won't spend too much time to talk about, but we saw really good activity and big chunks of space absorbed that have been vacant for a while. And one other significant point I wanted to make is there's a lot of sublease space that has been absorbed, which is a very healthy thing for our office market. Sublease space out on the market undercuts the market value of our lease rates. So to get some of that either expiring or absorbed is huge for our market. So office is looking up and up.
I can steal the microphone back from you. Callahan?
Well, yeah, let me comment on the interest rates as it relates to industrial. I think it's pretty important. Sorry for the voice, I'm getting over a head cold. I think the interest rate pressure is going to remain well into 25. And I think part of that is going to we're going to have no new supply added in the market. And I think most people who play in this space probably recognize that. However, what I do see happening is, as they mentioned some of this deal flow here, we are seeing some increased deal flow quickly in this early part of 25, regardless of the interest rate environment. So what I think we're going to start seeing is some of these last blocks of Class A space begin to stabilize and start seeing some good activity. So, it's development, no. It'll be obviously build-to-suit driven or some kind of pre-commitment. But I think we're going to see a pretty positive 25 as it impacts the industrial market here in the latter part.
I've joked with Brian a couple times, and I'm almost ashamed to admit this, but if you look at my call log on my phone, I think I talked to Brian Day on the phone about twice as much as I talked to my wife with all the with all the activity that's going on at the port. Brian, talk a little bit about some of the accomplishments at the port and what the outlook looks like at the port.
Sure, thank you, Jack. And I do want to just, we couldn't do it alone without the Chamber and ADC and Energy and the mayor here and all of that. It's a team effort, but we've had a great run. Over the last 3 years, we've had 11 announcements or expansions that have brought over $3 billion worth of private investment to the community. The last three, I just want to point out, you've read about them. We had Alopak, a Norwegian carton manufacturer. They're in production now. They stood that building up in 13 months, spent about $100 million, going to hire about 150 people. Faymanville, we announced in December, Belgium, family-owned heavy lift trailer company. They've hired their contractors, their designers. They're going to start breaking ground, about $120 million, 500 jobs. And then Wellspun, one of our flagship industries, at about the same time last fall, announced a major expansion, a whole new pipeline, and they're going to invest a lot of money. So from job creation, we've had a great run. From an infrastructure investment, we've got a bunch of federal grants underway, and I'm pleased to announce that none of those have been frozen under the current administration, but just some of the things that we're doing, we're spending $5 million on new mooring infrastructure along the banks of the river. We're investing $10 million in additional railroad infrastructure to handle our rail cars. We got, with Jack's help, a $2 million site readiness grant from AEDC to work on our mega site that you've heard so much about. We're doing a $1 million rail separation study right now to figure out how to separate traffic with all the cars coming into the port. We have a $12 million transload facility project underway that we're doing all the environmental on, and we've been noted that in the budget, if the House will ever come to terms, there's another $15 million for additional rail infrastructure. So, Jack, we're doing a lot. We're continuing to buy land with the mayor's help. Thank you, Mayor, for your support. We just closed on 1,200 acres of land. Most of that's already spoken for, kind of. And then we've got another 900 or so under contract, and we're talking to another 300 or 400 acres. So there's just a lot of that growth.
Brian, I want you to tell the story of the port a little bit, just where it started. There was similar to where we are at this moment in time. There was a group of visionary leaders that got together in the 1950s and said, we need to have a place to attract industry. Tell that story a little bit.
Yeah, it's an amazing story. In 1959, the city council came together and said, let's build a port. Business leaders like all of you in the room said we need a port. And in 1959, the river didn't exist as it does today. In fact, the river didn't exist where it is today. The Corps ended up moving it. But think about this. Someone had the idea that we're going to build a port to grow jobs for Little Rock, Central Arkansas. 65 years later, we're 5,000 acres in size. We have 53 businesses from 8 countries. Those 53 businesses employ over 10,000 people, and those 10,000 people come from 46 counties. 2/3 of the state of Arkansas send someone to Little Rock every day to make a living. And those 53 businesses contribute about $500 million a year to the local economy. So we're asking ourselves now, because real estate is our product, and quite honestly, we're about out of it. And so we're asking ourselves, what's next for the port? How do we grow river tonnage? How do we grow rail use? How do we attract manufacturing? How can we be innovative in trying to compete on the global stage? And we've been very successful, like I mentioned earlier, but we've got some hard questions to ask. And I think that I would like to say that we'll get back together in 10 years or so, and your building will be finished, and we'll be able to tell the story that we answered those questions, and we've grown our footprint, and we've attracted more industry from around the world. So there's a lot going on, Jack, and I think that with the interest in the port, the support from the mayor and the state and the chamber, we're going to get those questions answered.
I feel good about it as well. Staying with industrial, Callahan, we'll come to you. Give us some insight at the macro level on what's going on in the industrial market.
Yeah, you know, I think we're starting to see, and to piggyback off Brian, our firm is working on 2 projects now that are fairly significant potential manufacturing operations that would come here. And part of that, the information that we have found is that, you know, there is this reshoring going on. And I mentioned earlier, I think you're going to see a tremendous volume of manufacturing interest hit our region. We're seeing it now. We're going to continue to see it. And probably the biggest challenge for Brian and others is going to be power, utilities, and land and things like that. So as it relates to the port specifically, industrially speaking, as just large big box stuff, again, biggest challenge will be supply. We only really have one option if you're a 100,000 foot user within a relatively large radius where you can land in any type of Class A high clear type space. We know construction costs. We're going to hear more about it. We know debt cost. It creates a problem. And when you look 130 miles away in Memphis, if you're an industrial user and you're agnostic about where you have to be in terms of just actual decision making, Memphis can put together 25, 30 deals of 100,000 feet or bigger, and that's a problem. And their price points are going to be in that, you know, for credit deals, you're going to be $495, $550 a foot. That makes it a little tough for us. But as we look forward in this 25, if we can create some magic in the debt markets and construction costs come down, which I don't think that's going to happen, we're going to be supply constrained, and they're going to have to get pretty creative. And I would say, too, just to add a little bit to that, I think you're seeing a flight to quality. And for the deals that we see in this space, I think you're going to find that the newer buildings that can handle some of the automation and some of the AI technologies impacting the distribution space are going to be your winners at the end of the day. So that would include Zuber, Central Commerce, product like that, I think, is where you're going to see the higher caliber users seek that type of space.
Let's shift gears a little bit and talk retail. If you follow activity, I think you'll see that retail and entertainment are enjoying somewhat of a resurgence in this market. Nathan, I'm going to come to you. What's driving that, and what type of exciting retail opportunities can we expect to see?
Well, I'd like to go ahead and look at the vacancy rate. Let's start there. Let's start after the kind of get an idea of where we were during the pandemic, right after the pandemic. If we look at 2000 and let's go back to 21 and the third quarter, and you'll see at 18.8 is where we started off at. So it's pretty heavy vacancy there. And then it come down into 2024 on the third quarter of 2024, we got to 4.9. So our vacancy rate definitely made a lower jump there, which was great. We did come up a little bit to 6% in the end of 2024, and that was mainly due to the fact of some big box vacancies that hit the market and kind of skewed the numbers. But I think the contributing factor that we see with retail is the consumers shopping and spending in the brick and mortar now. Also, as Foster mentioned earlier, you know, entertainment is doing real well, and the food and beverage, that's solid. I think what we'll also see is a lot of redevelopment of Class Class C and maybe Class C, mainly Class B, go over to Class A with an expansion, and we'll see some of the entertainment and beverage pipelined into that retail setting too as well. As far as new retailers coming to the area, it's kind of limited due to NDAs that are signed, but I can tell you that it's exciting to hear some of the names, and I think it's going to be a good for everybody in the industry when they come along.
Good. So like I mentioned, we're going to come to the audience in just a minute on audience Q&A, but Foster, I want to ask you from a development perspective, what type of new-to-market projects are coming to this market, and what can we expect to see that you guys may be working on?
Sure. So obviously when we were in 24, we were looking forward to 25, getting through an election year, thinking we're going to see some cuts. Well, that was a pump fake. But and construction is still high, but 3-4 years ago when the pandemic hit, which I don't like talking about, but we had to get creative, and you had to marry up the general contractor and the architect and the owner and the developer all together early on, years in advance, in fact. And so we're having to continue to utilize that. It's no longer sending out a bid to 5 contractors and expecting the lowest price and going forward. You're having to go off of qualifications, get with them early in order to see these projects through. So you can see, so first the middle, which is just across the road over there, is a very exciting project that we've been working on now for, I think, a couple years. And it's going to be a great mix of retail, maybe some medical office, hospitality has committed, but it's taking time to find the right retailers, to find the right restaurateurs. We do have some excellent restaurants that are circling. I wish I could tell you. But nonetheless, it shows too, what I alluded to Breckenridge earlier, is the common spaces, the amenities. There'll be a bike trail running through there. Hopefully we'll stock the pond of fish. But it's getting the families out of the house, not just going to eat a meal and leave, but to hang around and go shop. That's going to be a main focus to this development, as you can see with that central area. And again, it's exciting to see medical office try to come back, but to Bill's point, I mean, we're having to get pre-commitments with these guys before we can go throw up 4 walls. So Topgolf obviously delivered in 23, and that site, the Clubview Village, if you'll sit. So Lee Strother and the team have been very active getting these lots under contract, but I'm sure if you've been to Topgolf, you haven't seen any vertical movement yet. All a realization of the current economy at a macro level. But as I mentioned earlier, Clubview, for instance, multifamily, 270-unit complex. What a great time, I believe, moving later into 25, maybe early 26, to bring that out of the ground and enter the market. So that's a nice multifamily complex there, and hopefully some hospitality. I know some retailers are circling that as well, but an exciting development there next to Topgolf.
So let's do this. Let's shift to audience Q&A. I know folks have got some questions, so let's open it up. I think Amy's going to come grab a microphone, and we'll walk through the crowd. So to the audience, what questions do you guys have? And somebody speak up, because I know too many of you to start calling off names. Mitch?
With the theater, with things like conversations around tariffs and other things, federal downsizing as well. I'm curious how both of those fit any trend lines, if at all, that you're talking about. Do you see tariffs helping onshoring? Is this a momentary blip? Do you even count this in any of your 3 to 5 year projections? Where do those federal conversations fit in any of your trend projections?
Yeah, it's a good question. I do think that the tariffs and the current administration, in conjunction with some other things, probably do put some pressure on companies coming back here. I think there's some other forces at play too as well regarding bringing manufacturing back to some of our cities and back into this country. And it's probably not just centered around tariffs or other related things like that. So hard to say yet, but I think there's a big push, and the right mechanisms will be put in place to make that happen. Yep.
Yeah, Chris?
Yep. Hey, I was wondering if you guys have any color related to Saline County and kind of prospect for development and what you're seeing in that market.
Nathan, I'm coming to you with this one.
That's fine, yeah, please. Of course, we know Buc-ee's is going in. They're at the Benton exit Haskell, but I can highlight on the Hope Valley development, which is a development that we're doing that's at, it's towards the southern part of Saline County at the corner of Highway 167 and Arch Street. So it's a large scale development. 300 plus homes that are being put in right now. Several retail locations that are available, 4 retail centers that actually were 100% occupied that I just recently sold to some investors. So that's in Saline County across from the East End Middle School. So exciting times there. Different than what you would think in Saline County is Benton Bryant. So you'd have to go towards the Saline, towards Haskell area.
Let me add one thing to Saline County too. Speaking from an industrial perspective and some land plays, there is some increased activity in some of the hyperscaler and data center market looking in Saline counties as well too. Details obviously not available, but I do think you're going to see some potential for some larger scale developments that may take down some pretty big acreage with reasonable access to power over the course of time. I see Saline County positioned reasonably well for that based on the availability, number one, and some of the infrastructure down there.
Can I go, Mitch? I want to expand on your question a little bit about reshoring. Coming back, manufacturing. That all became there was this concerted effort after the pandemic. We realized that the supply chain was broken, and we've seen, I think, a lot of. We've announced several foreign investments at the port, and I believe that probably has something to do with the supply chain thing. In terms of the tariffs and the rhetoric, it matters. I think it's still probably too early to see what that means. I think it will be good for some prospects. I think it will not be good for others, and the dust will settle, and I don't know if they know exactly what all that looks like in D.C. yet, but the rhetoric does matter. I would like to believe that the lessons learned from the pandemic on the manufacturing side of things, from aspirin to computer chips to toilet paper to aluminum, all of that, those are the kind of companies that have reached out to us over the years looking for opportunities. So I think that we've learned from that during the pandemic, and then possibly with the tariff conversations, when they settle out, you might see growth. Well, you will see growth in reshoring, manufacturing jobs coming back to Middle America.
Following the mic around here.
Yeah, you guys mentioned automation. Is there a potential impact to employment with our existing industries here in our market?
I'll take a stab at that. I think the answer is yes. I mean, we're constantly talking to companies as part of our economic development strategy about what the forecast looks like for them, right? And every single one of them, to the extent that they can, is looking to automate. I think it's no mystery at all that there's a labor shortage around the country, and if you can do more with less, you're going to. It's going to cost money, right? So one of the things that we're looking at from an economic development perspective is how do we provide an incentive to be able to encourage companies to do that here in the state versus somewhere else, right? So if you've got a company, a lot of the companies that we work with, they may have a facility here in Little Rock, they may have a facility in Tennessee, they may have a facility in South Carolina. Well, if there are incentives for them to, let me step back. Most of our incentives in the state of Arkansas are tied to job creation. So if you're a company looking to invest $100 million, but you're not creating any jobs, there's really nothing that can incent you to do that here in the state. So one of the things that we're looking at from a policy standpoint is how do we encourage those companies to make that investment here? Because I do think what we know is that if there are companies who choose to invest that additional capital in, say, Tennessee or South Carolina, when it does come time to consolidate facilities, which one are they going to consolidate? The one that they haven't invested in. So I think you'll see some legislation filed this session that speaks to that and frankly gives Arkansas a tool that, one, we don't have, but then two, our competitors don't have yet. So I think this is a chance for us to be ahead of the curve when it comes to modernization. Yeah, Courtney?
As you're looking out at other markets, or maybe as you're getting people looking in here, where do y'all see kind of categories of businesses that are wanting to move here, whether that be retail, restaurant, things that, where are we filling in gaps in Central Arkansas, things that we need and want that maybe we don't even know that we need and want yet?
Well, I think this is not directly answering your question, but we're seeing a lot of inquiries of manufacturing and distribution. I mean, and they want to be the logistical choices that we have, not only at the port, but in Central Arkansas. We're on the interstate. We have access to rail. We have access to the river. And for all those reasons I mentioned earlier, I think you're going to see that. And I think that, that we've talked in the past, not much today, but we're going to start marketing this mega site, this 1,000 acres that we have at the port. And don't know what that looks like down at the end of the day, but we hope that we'll attract an industry that would bring 15 or 20 supplier industries along with it. And those industries won't go to the port because we don't have the real estate, but they'll go in Jacksonville and Benton and Bryant and Little Rock, other parts of Little Rock. So that's the gap that we hope to fill. We think that could be another watershed moment for Little Rock if we can attract the right industry. That didn't really answer your question about filling the gaps, but manufacturing and distribution, I mean, Jack calls me every day, says, I need land, you got this, can you do that? Because people want to be in this part of the world.
And for office, medical and transportation have been two of the biggest categories looking for office space right now. Those have been the biggest deals that we've seen. We've seen some government deals, and going back to the question about government, not to get political, but federal government, state government has a big impact on office vacancy in our market. So it's going to be interesting to see how that affects, if the government's scaling back, it affects who's coming to work and what spaces look like and what's vacant. But generally speaking, office for medical has been very active. Transportation and logistics has been, putting people in seats to get all the semi trucks getting their deliveries where they need to be.
Yeah, Mitch?
Courtney mentioned gaps. I don't know how much you feel comfortable sharing what you shared with me over earlier about one of the things this group probably ought to be thinking about, that a hurdle could be around available power.
Yeah, well, it's no secret. There was a bill filed yesterday at 4:46 p.m. that Senate Bill 307, I believe, that addresses this. So we've got there'll be a couple of us that are in the room testifying tomorrow in front of Senate Insurance and Commerce Committee about the importance of this. So here's the truth, guys. That there are companies all across the state that are looking to invest at an unprecedented scale in the state of Arkansas. And there's no mystery. There's the steel industry. There's what's coming with lithium. There's data center activity. You fill in the blanks. The challenge that we have is that we simply don't have enough power. We're sitting at a moment in time where we're shutting down White Bluff and Independence 2028 and 2030 that I think collectively represent just over 3,500 megawatts, where at the same time, we've got 4,000 megawatts of availability. Buddy Hastings was on Roby's show the other day, and he said he's got 4,000 megawatts sitting on his desk right now of interest. And I could say the exact same thing. And I'll say this, I'll go so far as to say this is not just 4,000 megawatts of interest, this is 4,000 megawatts of companies that have land tied up in this market. So this is not some broad scale, broad brush request for information. These are real companies that are looking to unleash at an unprecedented scale, $25 billion that we've seen. We've hosted 4 Fortune 200 companies in Little Rock since the start of the year, in the first quarter year to date, looking to invest over $25 billion. We've never seen that. But the number one question is, can we get the power? And the answer right now is no. But there's some legislation that was filed to address that. What's the answer? More generation. The answer is any power we can get, we'll take it, right? I think you'll hear a lot of folks who are experts in this say the answer is natural gas and nuclear. Natural gas is certainly a heck of a lot faster than nuclear is. I think everybody recognizes how clean nuclear is and the opportunities that exist with nuclear, but nobody wants it in their backyard. I think we have a good example of that. Brian and I were working a project with a company that brought electricity to the United States, and very reputable company that said that they wanted to build small modular reactors at the Port of Little Rock. And we were extremely excited about this opportunity. And then about 10 months into working the deal, they said, hey, we're going to add a second phase to this that includes storing spent fuel rods on site. Well, of course, when you start talking about storing spent fuel in the Port of Little Rock, where the blast radius would encompass all the central business district and the airport and obviously all the employers at the port, that changed our tune. So we unfortunately had to say, hey guys, we love this opportunity. We think what you're doing with SMRs is the future, but unfortunately the Port of Little Rock's not the place for you. So I think that the answer to that is base load power, make no mistake about it, but it is an all the above approach that however we can get the power, we need to get it. Yeah, Brian said you may mention we're not alone. This is a national deal, but I think what you see is you see states like Mississippi to our east addressing this with similar legislation that's been filed here in the state. So other states are starting to get this right, and just like it is with incentives, just like it is with the tax environment, this is a critical component. And if we don't get the power, we can sit on the sidelines and watch all these companies go someplace else.
Yeah, let me add to that too, just from our firm having a national view on this particular topic. The power issue is very, very real. It's impacting Dallas, it's impacting Houston, it's impacting all these tier 1 markets to the point of where you've got like Encore out of Dallas, moratoriums essentially because of the amount of RFQs for real power from these top tier companies. It is a big, big problem, and probably one of the biggest problems we'll have into 25, into 26 as well too, because what Jack is saying in a very fast pace there, it is real, it's a real problem, it's going to be natural gas, there's going to be a lot of different alternatives in order to solve this, and we need all the state officials and everybody else obviously in full gear.
Yep.
So it's not just here. So
What other questions? Come on, somebody.
Any general contractors in there that actually think costs will go down ever? Because I got looked at like I was complete cuckoo when I asked that. Like, we're never going to lower our prices.
What?
You are a local investor like we are, but we don't have $100 million. You have $2.5, $5 million. Where would you put it? Where would you build? What would you do that? Some advice there.
Yeah. Well, I think it depends on what you're looking for. I think, churn. Well, I see a whole lot as Brian does in the industrial space, and we can't get land fast enough. Obviously there's some development issues there just in terms of how you make that pencil, but I think, and I'd be interested to hear from these guys, but I would say there is a void of space from an industrial standpoint, really that sits in the Class A space, anything in excess of 50,000 feet, I would say. So, we've got a 500,000 square foot building that was developed 36-foot clear Class A that was I guess completed 2 years ago, still sitting empty. There has been interest in that building, but there's been interest at the 200-foot level, the 300-foot level, at the 100-foot level that the ownership group was not entertaining at the time. I think they are now. But I think there's a real void in this market of 100,000 square foot and even below that Class A space, at least from an industrial perspective. But curious what you guys think.
You partner with Isaac and all of his great pals, and you build 100,000 feet with 26, 28-foot clear and segment it down into 20s and 25s, and I think you'll have great success. That's where
we'll fill it within
that's where you can. And if you have some yard space to go along with it, some extra acreage that makes sense, you'll be stabilized quickly.
What do you see happening with the airport industrial park, down there by Roosevelt and stuff?
Yeah. Well, I think there's companies, a lot of the companies that we're working with are looking for big land, and I think the challenge there is that there's not a whole lot of land area. Of course, it's top of mind. We think about it. We work with the airport quite frequently on at least on airport ground, but then also what's around. We don't have as much opportunity that exists there, just because there's not as much acreage that exists there. But I do think this, and I'll just be very candid, that perception is reality. And if you drive through that old industrial park area, it does not show well. It does not show as well as obviously something at the port or another sub-market around the market. So I think perception is very much reality, and that's a challenge, at least in that sub-market.
And there's other investment opportunities that we're happy to talk to you about. I mean, it depends on your depends on your appetite, right? We've got, any one of these guys can talk about investment opportunities, but there's still great investments to be made, deals to be made in Little Rock and other places as well.
All right. Give everybody, the panel a hand, please. Thank y'all all for coming out. Hopefully you found something to take away. I see people from Conway and Hot Springs and Northwest. We really appreciate everybody coming down and supporting this, and we're going to keep doing this, make it bigger and better each year, right, Amy? So bar's open till 6. All right, so you can stay here as long as you want until 6. And feel free to stay. Thanks again for everybody coming out.